Hey guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, we are going to talk about mod cluster. But before we go there, we will just compare mod proxy and mod AGP before we get to the mod cluster. So mod proxy, as we have already seen, it uses the HTTP connection and then it routes the request. And basically, we can configure load balancing in mod proxy as well. So we have a module called mod proxy balancer. So we can use that to create a load balancer mechanism. But then the problem, the shortcomings are that you will directly connect with those servers, and you may have to mention the server details somewhere in your HTTP server, where in which it will use those details and it will connect to them. The other thing is that you need to map those to the HTTP URL. You don't have a common point of that service, so it will be adding up extra load on your HTTP request in terms of incoming requests. So you don't have a specific port number. Though mod proxy nowadays has also comes up with something called AGP connection. So instead of HTTP, you can use AGP:// if you're planning to use AGP port number. Next one is mod JK. So now here more advanced loop balancing can be done, but then to a limitation. So this uses a specific module or a specific port number called AJP module or AJP port number, which will be established on each of the JVM. Again, it connects to the actual JVM. You have to mention about these JVM details on your mod JK worker file. So that worker file will have the details about it, and you can do the similar level of load balancing as you can do within mod proxy. Moving on to mod cluster. The mod cluster comprises of two modules. One is the mod proxy cluster and mod proxy itself. So mod proxy will be used in this situation as well, only in terms of routing the request to a cluster. Now the cluster here listens to a multicast IP address and port number, which will be listening on your domain level. So in a domain.xml on full HA, we would have already defined, I mean, it's by default, it's defined with the IP address and a multicasting IP address and port number, which will be always running when you start your Jboss. So your mod cluster will be actually connecting to that. That's a property called advertise, where your Jboss will advertise its host details in this IP address and port number on the multicasting IP, and basically your mod proxy cluster, which is part of which is a separate module which you need to download and install. Fortunately, I have that module supported for our version of Apache, which is packaged for you, and it will use that modules and connect with the configuration which is enabled for full HA. Now, as our library group is part of this full HA and deployments are done on these groups, not on the individual servers. So the first advantage is that your mod proxy here can monitor the server status. So every now and then there will be a status message. I will show you on the log. So every 1 minute you will see the status message being pulled up from each JVM and collecting the status. Now we were able to see in the hands-on on this mod JK that there was no way it would say that the server is live or not. We have seen a live example of that also on the hands-on session. But here there is no issue about it. So in the logs itself, you can see the mod proxy cluster has this heartbeat mechanism, wherein which it checks for each and every server status every minute, so that it will know who is up and who is not. The other feature of there are multiple modules which is enabled here, not just one or two modules here. So as I said you, there is going to be mod proxy as well, which is used for routing to a cluster. And mod proxy cluster, mod advertise, and other mod manager, cluster managers. There are a lot of other items which is going to be define and mod balancer as well for load balancing. So likewise, you have so many modules, like at least 4 modules will be defined for mod cluster, and each module does different purposes, right? So as I told you, it monitors the heartbeat of the JVMs. It also monitors the deployments and undeployments going on your JVM. So it also does that. You can do object-based routing as well. So that is also possible in terms of J grouping. That's basically it's comprised of J grouping. So the other feature of mod cluster is that not just the web server communicates to the app server will also communicate to each other, passing out heartbeats between the cluster members to understand who is actually handling who. So this comes very important because you will be handling session handling the session sticky session and the session persistence. So these two concepts is very much possible in this case. So in our AJP, we had some buggy experience on the session information, but here you won't find it buggy at all because this is a professional module which is designed for session affinity and session persistence, or sticky session and session persistence. So this is basically what we normally do for that. So as your mod proxy is connected to the this particular multicasting IP address and port number, the other advantage is that you're not specifying any number of servers in your HTTP anywhere, because you'll be actually for any server related information or what is deployed on those servers and the status of those servers will be all gathered from this IP address and port number, which will be part of your domain.xml. So if I add a new server over here, I don't have to define anything here. So the moment I add the new server here for sharing more load, then you can see that on your manager. So there is a manager for this. So in the manager, you can see the third server, slave number 3 for this library, server 3 is added, and you can dynamically see that server coming into coming as part of serving your load, and then you can see a new server whenever someone else browses from another cookie session, they will be assigned to that server. So this is how your mod cluster has so many advantages. And in terms of load balancing, there are different methods of routing your application. So for example, you can route your application based on your CPU performance of each of these servers. You can route based on the number of request count. You can route based on session count. You can route requests based on memory usage or heap usage, response time, or you can even use, as I said earlier, we can use objects to track objects, and then based on the utilization of these objects also, you can segregate the number of requests going throughout the cluster. I'll try to add as much information as possible, but my primary goal at this moment would be giving you some kind of a configuration to make your manager work, give you the overall the introduction to this cluster and make this mod cluster work for you. And then slowly, when I get time, I will try to add more videos on advanced configuration of this mod cluster. All right. So that's all for you folks about mod cluster. So we will see on the hands-on in terms of downloading, installing, and configuring this mod cluster on the next video. Thanks again for watching this. I'll see you on the next one.